Okay, this is official. On today's episode of Locked On MLB, I'm going to be talking about my least favorite baseball topic, but it's one I think we need to talk about.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, but the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTube channel. And if you're leaving a comment on any social media site, may I recommend you use that hashtag EverydaySully. It helps us find your comments, and then we can put them on there. All right, I'm going to be pulling a bunch from a CNBC article that came out a couple months ago, and I read it, and a couple of people forwarded it to me, and I basically said I don't want to talk about it because it's the single least fun thing to talk about in professional sports, but it's looming. It's looming like a wave that's approaching us. Remember that scene in Interstellar when they crashed on that water planet and they looked up and said, "Oh, there are those mountains over there." And then they looked over and said, "Wait a minute, those aren't mountains. Those are waves. Those are giant waves that when they hit the little space capsule, it would just wipe them out." Yeah, I just went a little deep on an Interstellar reference, but at least it wasn't a movie from the 70s this time. That's what's happening with baseball as the collective bargaining agreement is going to expire in December 2026. And we are basically experiencing Groundhog Day right now because the same topics, the same things we talked about in 2022 are on the table again. And what happens when we've had these agreements and these potential lockouts and everything like that? In the case of 2022, there was a lockout, but fortunately, it was during spring training, and eventually they got all their games in. It was a pain in the butt and really, really hard to do a baseball podcast during that, but I digress. We all know this is looming. We all know, like those waves in Interstellar. Look the scene up, and you'll know what I'm talking about. We know they're coming. We know in December 2026 the agreement that was sparked at the end of that lockout will expire, and entering the 2027 season, there is going to be a real, and did I mention real potential for a prolonged fight between the Players Association and Major League Baseball, as run by everyone's favorite commissioner, Rob Manfred. And the SC word has been floated about, the salary cap. Now, thankfully, another word is floating about, which is a salary floor, which I actually think is much more, necessary to talk about than a salary cap. You should have to have a cost of entry to participate in Major League Baseball. You should have a certain number of dollars you're spending on your team. And that should be the floor. That should absolutely be the floor. As for the cap, I've never been in favor of a salary cap, ever. But I digress. Let me just go through some of the main things that's going on here. Now, the Major League Baseball wants to have a salary cap. And they point out the fact that the National Football League has a salary cap, the NHL has a salary cap, the NBA, they have a salary cap. The NBA has had one since '84. The NFL had one in 94, and a really, really prolonged strike that wiped out an entire season of hockey ended with a salary cap in 2005. Now, baseball has certain things that can act as deterrent and create some form of equity where you have a luxury tax. If you go above a certain luxury tax, you have to pay into a fund, and the revenue sharing that can go from the big spending clubs to the small spending clubs. And that was a huge victory for the owners that exists. And it was like a soft cap. And you'll see that sometimes teams make decisions, like the Yankees sometimes didn't go for it when you had players like Bryce Harper or Manny Machado. Both of them would have fit in perfectly with the Yankees. And you saw teams like the Red Sox who pulled off one of the single monumentally stupidest trades, maybe in the history of baseball, but certainly the worst trade of the 21st century, when they handed the Los Angeles Dodgers Mookie Betts for essentially some gummy bears. And that was sparked by the luxury tax. But people will bring up the fact that the Mets have a payroll of nearly $325 million, and the Marlins have a payroll of less than Shohei Ohtani's annual salary. And there are basically a third of the teams in Major League Baseball spend more than $200 million, and there are 5 spending less than $100 million. Okay, that's fine. And you have teams like the Dodgers and the Mets who will be paying the luxury tax, and that's fine. But why is that the players' problem? Why is this owners versus players? This is a philosophical question, but do you know what? It's something we have to address. This doesn't strike me as a players versus owners situation. This is an owners versus owners situation. This is a set of rules are set up, and a luxury tax and a revenue sharing system has been fought for. And there are a couple of teams that are abusing it on one side and don't care about it on the other side. And isn't that an issue that is within ownership? I'm going to go through that in a second and bring up why I think the argument is being framed incorrectly and how damaging that can be.
If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? No, you called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important. And that's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Did you juggle 2 phones just to keep business or personal calls separate? Open Phone can solve that instantly. Open Phone is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have existing phone numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers.
The Mets are currently owned by a fella named Steve Cohen, who bought the team for $2.5 billion tomatoes. And he knows about revenue sharing, and he knows about the luxury tax. And there is no microscope powerful enough to detect how little he cares. He has piles of money and apparently looks at the luxury tax as the price of doing business. The Los Angeles Dodgers, run by the Guggenheim Baseball Management, and Mark Walter and Magic Johnson. They bought the team in 2012 from the McCourts, who were driving the team into the ground, for a cool 2 billion clams. They also don't really care about the luxury tax. They don't care about revenue sharing. They just want to put a great team on the field and draw big fans. Now, the Miami Marlins were bought by Bruce Sherman in 2018 for $1.3 billion. And he has done everything he can to strip mine the team, including putting 2 sticks of dynamite under a young, fun, and inexpensive team that went to the playoffs in 2023. And now by 2025, they stink again. And oh no, it's not fair. It's not fair. And of course, the biggest disaster is John Fisher and the Oakland A's limited partnership and what they have done to deliberately destroy a fan base and ruin a team, all for the sake of collecting revenue from other teams. That's why they're in Sacramento. That's why they didn't raise that the entire time that Fisher has owned the team, he hasn't handed out a contract more than Eric Chavez got in 2005 until he was forced to, because he wouldn't be able to get revenue sharing if he didn't spend a little bit of money on the team. This is not the players saying, you've got to give us this money. This is, we've set up a system, and the people on the two opposite ends of it are abusing it in their own way. When the Mets and the Dodgers say, we don't care about it, we're just going to outspend everybody and the luxury tax is fine, that doesn't seem fair to some of the other teams. When the A's abuse it and do things to sabotage their own team and fan base so they can collect revenue sharing, that also is not how this was designed and shouldn't be done that way. Where are the players and their clashing with the owners involved in this? What this needs is a strong commissioner, which we haven't had in a very long time. And we need someone to reel in the two ends of that. Now, I don't know how you reel in if someone wants to spend a lot of money, but the salary floor, or if someone like Fisher to say, hey, you can't just abuse the whole revenue sharing situation and pocketing it. What baseball needs to do is, if they have the luxury tax and they have the top teams, like the top spending teams, like the Mets in Los Angeles, throwing money into that pot, there needs to be some sort of auditor. You know, recently, as I've told you before, I'm a teacher in Pasadena. And you may remember in January, we had a horrible thing happen here. And the school I teach at is in the base of Eaton Canyon. You know, the fire that hit us in January and caused tremendous amount of damage to some of the schools in Pasadena Unified. 2 of the schools burnt down. We couldn't go back into our classroom for weeks because of the smoke damage. And we received money. Each classroom received a certain amount of money of relief funds for that. My classroom received $500 of relief fund money. But they didn't just hand me a $500 check and say, hey, Sully, go to the Olive Garden. We had to take that $500 and spend it on things in the classroom, things we use in the classroom, art supplies, school supplies, technology, plates, wipes, hand sanitizer, special ed class. We need all of that stuff. And I got it, and I had to itemize. Here's how we spent this. Here's what we spent on paper plates. We spent on Kleenex. We spent on big bean bags for the kids to lie on for sensory exercises. We bought magnets that would be used for sensory lessons. We spent every single dime of that $500 and I had to bring it itemized back and say, here it is. I spent that $500 on these things that we use in our classroom. That's what needs to happen with revenue sharing in Major League Baseball. If the A's get this money, if the Pirates or the Marlins or whomever get this money, they have to have a complete audit. Here's how we use this money to improve our team. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be free agent signing. It could be on international signings. It could be on signing their own players to long-term deals. It could be this, it could be that. But they have to show how they used every dime of revenue sharing to make the product on the field better. And if they don't, you don't get it. And they did show a deterrent on that because Fisher wasn't able to get his revenue sharing unless he showed he was improving the team, which is why he made the panic move to bring in Luis Severino, to re-sign Lawrence Butler, and to re-sign Brent Rooker. But it shouldn't have to take that to be able to do that. It should be every year. You collect it, you got to show how you put that on the field. But this is really a moment where the commissioner has to come in and work in-house. And creating a lockout isn't going to solve piddly-poo. There is no way that the Major League Baseball Players Association will approve a salary cap, even if they have a salary floor. I'm much more interested in the salary floor. But here's the other reason why they won't. Because there's no salary cap on the price that a team could be bought for or sold for. The White Sox are going to work out a deal with the Reinsdorf family to transfer the power, and that family is going to make billions of dollars. Some of the other teams are going to wind up selling the team. The Baltimore Orioles wound up selling the Rubenstein got from the Angelos family for $1.7 billion. Are you going to put a cap on that? Are you going to put a cap on what a team could be sold for? Are you going to put a cap on the media revenue? You can't cap the owners. Why are you going to cap the players? This basic fight doesn't have anything to do with the players. And also, when in that very article that was sent to me, that my friend, because my friend of mine who sent me the article knows that I've always been anti-owner in labor situations, because historically, owners have not told the truth. That's just the case. And then you sort of see the history. And by the way, if you ever wanted to ever read a good book about the history of baseball and and the history of the behind the scenes of baseball, John Hellier wrote a great book called The Lords of the Realm, which tells basically the labor history of baseball and the behind the scenes. It's a great book. The version I have ends with the 1994 strike. I'm old enough to remember vague memories of the 1981 strike, strong memories of the one-day strike of 1985, vivid memories of the lockout of 1990. And the 1994 strike and the 1995 lockout was scorched earth, absolute scorched earth. And it took the steroid era to bring baseball back. Well, I feel like I'm repeating myself from a lot of the posts that I did during the lockout in 2022 when I still was the host of Locked On MLB back then. But baseball can't afford a work stoppage now. The media consumption for sports is so much different than it was in 1994 and 1995 when the internet was just hey, I emailed something. I put something on a message board where we talked about Friends and Seinfeld. Oh, okay. No one thought it would do anything other than share recipes and show pictures of your freaking dog. We didn't know it would be used as basically control our lives. And give you constant states of entertainment. You've got probably 3 or 4 streaming devices on your phone, let alone in your home. If baseball removes itself from people's queue for even a little bit, people will move on. There are other things to watch. I'm going to watch The Bear. I got to get caught up on Hacks. I'm going to watch soccer. You want daily sports? You've got it. You want to watch videos of people watching other videos? You got that too. And you got 7 new Spider-Man movies a year and Barbie 2 coming out. And they're all available on your phone and on your device. And if baseball removes it, oh God, I take that. It's almost a relief when you have something removed from your queue. Baseball cannot afford it. And so they need to start talking now, not wait for the deadlines now. And the Players Association should throw it right back in their face and say, hey, we agreed to revenue sharing. We agreed to a luxury tax. You can't figure it out. In what world, in this article that I got, Miami is pointed at as a small market club. On what planet is Miami a small market for baseball? Why is it a big glamorous market in every other sports, but in baseball it's moose jaw? It's a sexy, vibrant city that players love to go to, that there's money flowing all throughout it, and there's tax breaks there, and you have a lot of players from the Caribbean and the South playing in baseball, and it's like a Venn diagram of everything that a player would want to go to and want to experience. But the ownership of the Marlins have turned it into garbage. And why has a city like San Diego, who looked like the absolute epitome of a small market team without any hope, able to be a contender with a decent sized payroll? Because of management. And I'm telling you, I don't trust the owners. They colluded in the 80s. They put one of their own as the commissioner in the 90s. And they're doing things like having their frat brothers be owners and pat them on the back and allowing John Fisher to run a team into the ground. I will never root for owners. And for the players, it's like, hey, you can obviously make them the villains in fans' eyes. Look at that. These players just want more money. They're making all this millions. They just want more money. What a bunch of bums. Without once thinking of the owners are the ones who are actually doing it. There's a real scenario of something that could happen, not in 2 years, but this year. And if it does, I'm going to be honest with you. I'll kind of chuckle because the owners have put themselves in some bad situations. And I kind of think it's funny.
Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get exactly what you're looking for to get the job done right. Plus, they've got a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, so you know you're getting exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. And for trade pros looking for the extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. There are thousands of skilled professionals that are already taking advantage of this program, and now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order at supplyhouse.com.
You know, for a couple of decades now, the situation for a stadium in Tampa Bay has been dire. They built the stadium in the wrong place. And when they built it in the mid-'80s to try to lure a team there, They finally got their team, and the minute the Rays showed up, they wanted to leave, and it's been a mess, and they needed to have a new ballpark. And they've kicked, and they screamed, and they've done this, they've done that. The Rays pulled out of their own deal. The stadium got torn apart by a hurricane, but they should have come up with a plan a decade ago. The whole reason why baseball hasn't been able to expand is because of the mess that the Rays and the A's have done. But think about that for a second. Baseball is talking about, oh, things are going to happen, franchises may fold, this, that, the other thing, and they want to expand. This is the same thing happened in the 94 strike and the 95 lockout, is they kept saying, oh, we're going to have to contract, teams are not going to survive, and we're expanding to Tampa Bay and Arizona. Well, which is it? Are you contracting or are you expanding? Which is it? It can't be both. It's not physically possible to be both. And it's kind of strange that we're in this situation again, where they desperately want to expand, but they put themselves in this situation. Now, the way the A's have played, I don't think they have any shot of making the postseason, but the Rays can. The Rays are hanging around in that wild card chase right now. And if they do, where the hell are they going to play if they make the playoffs? Are they going to play in Steinbrenner Field? Are they going to put a temporary tarp over Tropicana Field? Are going to play it in Miami? What are they going to do? And I can't claim to be a Rays fan, but I want to see him in the playoffs. I want to see him in the playoffs. I want the owners to squirm a little bit, that they are in a situation that they put themselves in. I have no love for the owners because I just have found over the years they don't always have the best interest in baseball at heart. And I don't believe them. I've never believed them in their arguments of what's going on behind the scenes. So I want to see them in a situation with the Rays in the postseason and wondering what the heck is going to happen here. Now, my dream American League Championship Series for this year would be A's Rays. I would love that with every fiber of my being. I would laugh harder than a double feature of Airplane and Top Secret. It's not going to happen. But it could happen with Tampa Bay. But what should happen right now is a commissioner needs to come in and get the owners together and say, look it, you over there who just spend and spend and spend and spend and spend, you got to reel it back a little bit. And you who are just cashing in, you got to do better. We're essentially talking about 4 or maybe 5 teams out of 30 that are causing all this trouble. Get the salary floor in there, have an entry fee in there, and if you want to tighten up the tax at the top, but audit the heck out of any spending. Baseball cannot afford to lose one single day from a work stoppage. They can't. It is absolutely not acceptable. And if you know it's going to be in a couple of years, don't wait to do the homework on the bus. Start figuring it out now, because nothing will turn off fans faster than this. And the Players Association, who has nothing to do with this really, are going to turn out to be the bad guys because it's so easy to manipulate the message. But I'm telling the message right now. This is an owner's situation. So owners, fix this. And you can fix all the fun that you want to have by listening to this show, which I try to do. I try to give you 5 new ones a week. That's not too shabby. But hey, thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, here's what I want you to do. I want you to keep it right here on the Locked On MLB channel, but we're going to do something different. We're going to be covering every single game with the good hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network, and you will see the show, which is the Locked On Game Night, and you're going to see national coverage from the local experts every day. Follow them right here on the Locked On MLB channel on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Talking about my least favorite topic. And hopefully, you know what? Hopefully, I'm not going to be talking about this much this year, but I need to bring it up. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.